In today's video, we're going to discuss the crucial adjustment that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has made at the plate, and it's just in time to carry the Blue Jays to hopefully a magical postseason run. So we'll break that down on this episode of Jays Digest, as well as Davis Schneider. Has he been screwed out of playing time by Major League Baseball? We'll break that down and much more coming up next. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. Hopefully you enjoyed the off day yesterday because these next 6 days are about to get crazy. Now, the Blue Jays' magic number sits at 3. If they get to 90 wins, they're guaranteed a postseason berth, and I'm pretty sure 89 gives them a pretty decent chance as well. So they're playing some good baseball. They're picking their best time to get the offense going right now. The pitching has been the constant all season long, but look what happens when you finally start to get some run support and your guys finally start to be your guys, like Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who we'll discuss more in depth in this video. But Nick, the Blue Jays are really picking the right time to get hot here. The divisional the divisional round or the wild card round, the schedule has been released, and we're already starting to plan our days around that. But we'll have that more later on as today goes. But Nick, Jays are really they're on one right now, and it's a good time to go ahead and do that.
Yeah, and with the Mariners losing yesterday, we're one step closer to getting into the playoffs. Before you get into that, make sure to hit the subscribe button. We're like 5 subs away from 8,300, so if you're watching the video, hit the subscribe button if you're not already. Let's get into the first topic here, which the MLB is screwing the Jays, specifically Davis Schneider a little bit, and this came out yesterday, and it's worth talking about, Davis Schneider in general, how he's been on a bit of a cold streak his last 30 or so at-bats. He's been hitless for a while. That being said, his at-bats have been very, very solid. And not only have they been solid, he's been absolutely torching the balls. And he's been hitting them into gaps, and they've just been getting caught all the time. But here is the Davis Schneider thing. So no MLB batter this season has had a higher percentage of out-of-zone pitches called strikes against him than Davis Schneider. Now, Peter, you can go and look at this tweet yourself if you want, and it goes through, this is Codified Baseball, it goes through all of the pitches that have been called outside or high, or majority of them have actually been high and outside. Do you think this is a case of the MLB or the umpires just not doing their job correctly, or maybe it's a case of him being a rookie and the umpire making him earn it?
It could be that as well, but it's a very small sample size too. I mean, he's only had a handful of at-bats compared to a lot of other players that are on that list. I mean, you see some guys on that list, they're up to 500, 600 plate appearances by this point of the season, maybe even 700. So, yeah, it's obviously a small sample size, and you could say that he is kind of getting screwed, and he has been to a certain extent. He's not a big guy, so his zone theoretically should be a little bit smaller, but he gets a lot of high strikes called on him, a lot of outside strikes called on him. And I don't know if it's just a coincidence. I don't know if it's just because he's so committed to his takes that it looks like he's ready to swing. Like he takes a pitch, but he's loaded up and he's ready to do some damage, even though he's not necessarily taking a hack at the pitch. So it could be deceiving to the umpires. Maybe they just don't really know how to officiate Davis Schneider as of yet, but I wouldn't really say he's getting screwed. It's more so of him just having a small sample size and just quantifying it to that. But yeah, he's been very unlucky, and he got lucky early on in his career. He had a great approach then. He was getting a lot of home runs. He's getting a lot of doubles in the gap, but now baseball has a way of humbling you, and it has a way of evening stats out, and now his BABIP has got to be probably around league average after being sky high when he first got up to the major league.
Yeah, I think, robot umpires, I'm starting to lean towards that side of things, and it'll help players like Schneider and, of course, Kevin Biggio, who often get, screwed or get messed over by the umpires. And yeah, I think at the end of the day, it might not be the MLB fully, they're not stepping in or anything, but Davis Schneider also has an unbelievable eye, and he knows what pitches he can barrel, and he only swings at pitches that he knows he can hit, and sometimes that leaves it to where, some of the pitches are, borderline. They're, of course, going to get called strikes. Now, looking at Davis Schneider's, stats in the season, and the bottom is his overall season stats. It's funny, we're talking about through this crazy over 30 plus or over 36. He still has almost 1,000 OPS, 71% above league average. But you can see up top there, the last 5 games, he's been hitless, and he's been, worse than that over his last 30 or so. But like you said, his approach hasn't changed. He still looks very comfortable at the plate, and sometimes baseball just, like you said, it humbles you both in a good way, and it'll possibly, humble him in a better way later on in the season over the next week or so. And it makes for an interesting question about whether, what the starting, lineup for the Jays will be in the playoffs in about a week, because knock on wood, the Jays are basically a lock to get in the playoffs unless they lose every single game. And even if they do that, they're still in a pretty good spot because of the way the schedule works out. But we'll have a video discussing a potential, lineup. But I think Davis Schneider is a big question mark right now.
Right. And a week ago, the answer would have been Davis Schneider by a landslide to be the everyday second baseman. But now you look at it and you probably lean towards Whit Merrifield just because of the experience that he brings. And he was one of the better performers in the 2 games that the Blue Jays had last year against the Mariners. So I think you got to lean more towards the experience of Whit Merrifield. You got to get him in there in game 1. And then if something just isn't working, then you got to adjust on the fly and you got to be able to make those changes. But yeah, right now, I think Davis Schneider is going to be more of a platoon/bench bat for the Blue Jays going into the playoffs, but he should be on the roster. There's no question about that because he is one of the more powerful, potent bats in the lineup, and he's got the potential to run into one every now and then. So I think this has just been an unlucky stretch of play for him. Maybe try to get him as many at-bats as you can down the stretch here to see if you can catch that lightning in a bottle again. But right now, as it stands, I'd probably go with Whit Merrifield or Kevin Biggio if Brandon Belt was to come back in time for the wild card round.
Yeah, and I even think maybe if Brandon Belt comes back, I wouldn't be surprised if they would get to start to Biggio somewhere in the field with the way he's been playing. It also maybe depends on, what stadium we're playing at, because Whit Merrifield does very, very well, at the Trop, which is what it's looking like right now. So I think if we play at the Trop, it'll definitely be that. But let us know what your thoughts are on that, and I'm sure we'll have a video covering that going forward. But Vlad has made a crucial adjustment to his swing, to his hands, and it only took the entire season for him to make this adjustment, but I'm not going to complain too much. And Mark DeRosa went on MLB Network, I believe it was yesterday, the day before, and highlighted basically his adjustment with his hands. Joe Siddall tweeted this morning, and that's what we're going to be highlighting here in a minute. But first, Vladimir Jr. saying Guillermo fixed him from Avery. He's been hitting .314, 5 home runs with a crazy OPS. And then Peter, this is a bigger sample size. Since the start of September, he's been a very, very good hitter. His discipline is crazy, much better. His walks are up, his Ks are down, his BABIP is low, which means that, his BABIP's low and his average is high. That's very, very good. It means he's not getting lucky, borderline unlucky. And the adjustment here, you can pause, zoom in, go check Joe Siddall's, tweet. He basically made a big adjustment to his hand. However, as Joe Siddall, tweets, he's still not fully back to his 2021 mechanics. But Peter, he made his adjustments to his hand. He's starting his swing a bit earlier, I believe. His hands are a bit more ready, and that was the big thing that we, I believe, discussed about a couple months ago when it was people were making comments about that. But never too late for Vlad to make it big. He's been playing unbelievable the past few weeks, really.
Yeah, he has, and that all starts. You could talk about the adjustment of his hands all you want, but when you're picking the right pitch to swing at, I mean, that's when all the success comes, and that's when it follows. So he's you see his numbers since September 3rd that we pulled up over there, 407 on base. I mean, that just shows that he's taking his walks, that he's waiting for one specific pitch to do damage on, and he's not striking out.
Nope.
8.6% strikeout rate is elite. I mean, that's more than elite. That's probably in the top 1% of Major League Baseball if you stretch that over the course of a full season. So he's been phenomenal in that regard. He's really looking for one specific pitch up there before he gets to 2 strikes. And that's the way you got to go ahead and hit, because they're not going to give you cookies, especially not if you're Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He's had success in the major leagues before. He's a guy with immense power, and pitchers are afraid of him. It doesn't matter what his numbers look like on the surface. He's a scary guy to go up there and pitch to. So pitchers have exploited him all season long. They've been pitching him low and away because they know that he wants to do damage, and they know that he's been impatient so far to start the year. So now he's made the adjustment. He's been very patient up there. And when you do talk about the mechanical adjustments that he's made, it's very evident. I mean, his hands are loading back a lot further. He's just making those adjustments, and he's ready to do damage on the fastball. He was late. He wasn't loaded up in time earlier on in the year, and now you could tell he's pulling the ball a little bit more. He's getting it in the air just because his hands are ready, and he's sitting back there waiting for the pitch, waiting to do damage. And that's what we've been clamoring for all season long, Nick. We've been saying he's got to get geared up for the fastball and then react to the off-speed pitches. But it's been the opposite so far. But now I'm glad in the last month of the season, he's made that adjustment, and it's paid dividends for him and the Blue Jays.
Yeah, and we can talk about the actual physical adjustments all you want. A lot of it's mental. A lot of it is regarding his approach, and that's probably the biggest thing with this. The K rate being down, the walk rate, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. he's not going to get pitches down the middle very often. But, throughout the, start of the season, A, he was swinging at pitches outside the zone, and B, when he would get a hanging curveball, he would foul it back or something like that, and that's been the big change. But, yeah, Peter, that'll wrap up the video. Very, very nerve-wracking series starting tonight. We're in a very, very comfortable spot, but I feel like after this crazy season, you never really know what's going to happen. Any quick thoughts on the series starting tonight before we wrap up?
Oh, it's exciting, man. It's exciting. This is why we wait all season long for these types of moments, and we've been gearing up for it. We kind of jumped off the bandwagon a couple weeks ago. We didn't jump off the bandwagon, but we thought it was over. We thought it was doom and gloom in Blue Jays land, and now we're back. We're sucked all the way back in, and they better go on a run in the postseason because we're so far invested into this team, Nick, that we want to see it. And this team, this era, they haven't won a playoff game, this core of players. So now's the time. The time is approaching, and they got to go out there and do some damage in this series against the Yankees today.
Yeah, and I think they will in this series, and I have a good feeling about the postseason going forward. But thank you guys for watching. Thank you for support, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks.